lesson plans document. What we're going to look at now is the structure of the lesson. So we know our arts and letters lessons have 3 parts: the launch, learn, and land. What I would like to look at is what is the goal of each part, okay? So we're still along the lines of goals, and I want you guys to look at the lesson that I copied for you on page 101. Let's look at the agenda. So the agenda gives you a quick synopsis of the goals of each part of the lesson, and it lays out the structure of the lesson for you. So here I see today's agenda. The launch, the goal is to read the content framing question. So don't skip the content framing question. And also read it beforehand so you know what the goal of the lesson is. The learn part of the lesson, there are 3 parts to the learn. The first part is to read. We're reading to analyze similes and metaphors. The second part is respond, explaining the meaning of figurative language. And the third part is to write. We're examining the painted essay. Now the read and respond part of the learn, I see that it is really breaking down that standard. In the read part, we're identifying and analyzing similes and metaphors, going back here. And then in the respond part, we're explaining the meaning of figurative language, going back to here, okay? So we see there how the lesson is structured and how it directly ties to the standard. And then I see the land. For the land part, we are reflecting on learning. So the preparation materials and follow-up, make sure that you're going through those parts so that you can make sure you have everything that you need to teach that lesson ahead of time. The preparation and follow-up. Follow-up is important because at the end of the lesson, you will see that you are required to do your students are required to do the follow-up activities. So, and it will just reference, it will say assign the follow-up work. So make sure that you're looking at that follow-up section as well. So after I look at the structure of my lesson, and again, when I look at the structure, I'm going through the goals. My mind is still set on how will my scholars master this standard. Now I'm going to move into the actual lesson. So for step 3, we're looking at questions, we're looking at actions, we're looking at unfamiliar words or words that might trip up our scholars. So you're really doing a quick read through of your lesson. You're highlighting what you must say, just like when we do that EOG, when we do the testing. When we have to do EOG testing and you guys are reading from your manual, and the first thing we tell you in training is go ahead and highlight what you must say so you're not fumbling through your book on test day. Do the same thing with your manual. Go ahead and highlight the things that you must say beforehand. Then highlight the actions that students are doing beforehand. Look at any words that are maybe hard for you to pronounce. And then go, and I'll tell you when we get to it, there was a word here that I had to go. No, there was another lesson I was looking through. And it was a word that I had to go to Google and get the pronunciation for. Because when I get in front of my scholars, it's not that I want to be like I know everything, but I want to be prepared. That's the thing. Okay? I want to be prepared. So I did look at the word and made sure I knew how to pronounce it and made sure I was familiar with that word before actually delivering. Okay? So those are things that you look through. So as I went through the lesson, here's how I prepared. And practicing it helped me know how to prepare, okay? I just wanted to throw that out there because we're kind of skipping a little bit when I say practice, but practicing the lesson helped me know how to prepare for the lesson. So as I went through, I took one color highlighter. So I took the pink highlighter and I highlighted the things that I needed to say. And then I highlighted in green the students' actions. And then I underlined anywhere where it said reinforce the correct response, because I know when it says reinforce the correct response, that is a part of the lesson where I have asked the question and I should have gotten student responses, but I want to make sure that I'm getting the correct response, and it's giving me the correct response. So I wanted to make sure I call attention to that, just in case I'm not hearing the correct response, or I can affirm the students' responses. And again, I looked at words that may be unfamiliar or tricky words, or that I might need to look up, know the pronunciation for. I starred key ideas to make sure that I spent time there, and I made sure that once I get to that part in the lesson, I'm checking for understanding, because that showed me those were key ideas and key points in the lesson that I needed to make sure that I did checks for understanding. So you have the highlighted parts here, and I'm not going to go through all of them, but what you, as I said, the steps that you would take would be to go through and highlight what you are to say, annotate as well. So I want to show you guys one page where in practicing it helped me. So one was page 106. I made notes on these are areas where I can academically monitor, okay? Because it has analyzed student progress and it tells you what to monitor for. So in those parts, I wrote academic monitor. So as I am working, then I know as I'm working through the lesson or delivering the lesson, when I get there, I know that should be a part where I build in my academic monitoring. Okay. Page 108.
So excuse me.
Yes, ma'am.
As these lessons are settled, we can just go through it as it is.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
That's lovely.
Yes, ma'am. So what we have to do is just put the work in on front of studying the lesson. Okay, you gotta study the lesson, because even though I had a script for today's session, I still had to practice and study this so I can make sure that I'm delivering. Yes, ma'am. So on page 108, as I was practicing, this helped me with notes, because as I was going through the lesson, I was fumbling, and then I would get to parts where I highlighted pink. So I know I'm supposed to say it, but I was highlighting a lot, and I highlighted read aloud, the first paragraph, and I'm not gonna say that to students. So what I went back and did is I highlighted it in pink, right? But as I was practicing, that showed me, oh, I don't actually say that. So what I did was made a note of, I read. So when I get to that part of my lesson, I'm not even gonna fumble. I'm not even gonna, it's not even gonna look like it was there, because I'm gonna know that from my note that, hey, silly, don't read the script, read the screen that you had projected for your kids, right? So that's why going through the lesson is so important. That's why practicing is so important, because you can go through and highlight a bunch of things, but if you hadn't really read through it and internalized it and know what you're actually doing, when you get up there, it's gonna show, okay? So I circle at the top of the page where you see the number 2, I put a star, because this is important, right? This is a segue to the next task. And it's something that I have to display for the students. So this is a transition piece, because at this point in the lesson, we're moving moving from the story, the circulatory story, into the writing, okay? So there's gonna be a bit of transition here, so I'll put a star there to key me in on it's time to move to the next part of your lesson. And you could even write a note there, or a transition, like I see Ms. Brothers has written, very good.
I don't have a question
Yes,
about
ma'am.
that, since you brought up the word transition.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the scripted, it gives you minutes, like, for instance, respond supposed to be 12 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, this respond has 6 components. How do we know, it says instruct the kids to read page 12 to 13 with a partner, starting with if you like and including illustrations, annotate 2 items. What is a good amount of time? Because then when I'm in a class, I say, I think that 12 to 13, you read them with a partner, 3 minutes.
Mhm.
Because I have 12 minutes to deliver everything within this respond part of the learner. So next thing it says, invite a few students to share their responses. So in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, I only have 2 minutes. So I've already ate up 5 minutes now. I have 7 minutes left. Introduce the vocabulary word vow. Okay, by the time I do that, that's about a minute, averaging. Now introduce the learning task. Direct students to their journals. Instruct students to write, explain how the metaphor in the text helps readers understand the vowels. All right, so if they're writing in the journal, I only have 7 minutes left. I still have 2 more things to do. I think for me as a teacher, it's like I'm rushing through it because it's telling me I have 12 minutes.
Right.
Do you understand where, okay,
I
my
do.
mind is,
So,
okay.
so I understand, and what I'm hearing is that for this chunk of the lesson, there are quite a few moving parts,
Yes,
and you only have 12 minutes to get it all done.
yes,
And it feels like you are rushing the kids and moving them too fast, and they're gonna miss
core meaning of
the
what
core
we're doing.
meaning. All right, and that is a very good point. So I'll tell you 2 things. One, I understand where you are.
Yes, ma'am.
Because last year, remember when I had to go in 5th grade and teach for a little while?
Yes, ma'am.
When I first picked up the manual, that's how I felt.
Yes, ma'am.
But I also understood that the way this was written,
Okay.
okay? So you have 12 minutes for that part. Go through your lesson for a second and tell me, is there another part of the lesson where you have a large amount of time?
20 on writing.
Okay?
I gotta go back, cause the first one's the read part. Okay, so I have 21 on read, 12 on respond, and 20 on writing.
Okay?
In the read, I have 17 components in the read,
And you have how much time?
21 minutes.
Okay. And here is the reason and rationale. So the time of the lesson is put to with the intention of where the focus of the lesson should be.
Right.
So even though I know there are a lot of moving parts to the one that you had questions about, what we have to do is get the students in the rhythm of moving with us and sticking to the time. Because wherever the most or the bulk of the time is placed, that's the intended learning for the scholars, if that makes sense. That's the part of the lesson where the intended learning is happening. And that's why there's more time there, because that's the bulk of the lesson where the intended learning is happening. Those other parts are getting you there, okay? Those other parts are getting you there. But where that bulk chunk of time is, those are the parts of where we are trying to stick to learning. So what we have to do is those parts that, seem like it's a lot of moving parts, we gotta learn how to get our kids to move with us. Okay? Gotta learn how to get them to move with us. So it might be tricky in the beginning, okay? But you work through that. You work through that.
5, 2, 3, 5, I'm not seeing it. Right there. When you get to this point, that's your learn. This is the whole thing, 53 minutes. This tells you your minutes. And these are your components that you go through. And once you get to that, you're gonna see it be bold in your manual. It's bold. You have this, you have 3. It changes, so it could be right, it could be a lot of different things. But you'll see it in there. So there's your respond and there's your right. Okay? Yes, ma'am.
So thank you, Ms. Brothers.
You're welcome.
And you brought us right into you brought us really right into our next step. So
Okay.
looking at pacing of the lesson.
Yeah.
So that was and actually steps 3 and 4, pacing and
Pacing.
practicing.
Yeah.
Okay, and that's gonna address what you were
Okay.
talking about. Okay. So one thing with pacing, just like Ms. Brodus just showed you, Ms. Cox, is going through the lesson beforehand and paying attention to where your minutes are, okay? And as I said, we have to think about the intended learning and the intended purposes of each part of the lesson, okay? So some parts might have a lot of moving parts, but it should be things that we teach our kids how to work